Hi there, aviation fans, it's Pip here. Just before we start this podcast, I want to let you know that this is in fact a video podcast. The main section features a segment that we recorded from Heathrow Air Traffic Control, so you'll get much more out of it if you see the video. So I recommend you take yourself along to YouTube, search for Plane Safety Podcast, and you can watch the whole thing there. So, without further ado, let's get this thing going. Adopt the brace position, Squawk 7700, Plane Safety Podcast episode 59 is ready for departure. Welcome to episode 59, I think, of the Plane Safety Podcast. The more astute of you will have realised immediately that this is something a little bit different, because this is one of those rare occasions when we are videoing the podcast. Not only is it on video, it's also on location. But before we get too much further, let's introduce my co-host. He's here with me in the flesh, standing next to me. Soak him in all his gorgeousness. It's my pal, your pal, our pal, Captain Al.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be.
Excellent. Hi, Al. Well, we happen to be on location at Leicester airfield in the middle of the UK. The date today is the 11th of April. And, well, why are we here at Leicester? Food, mostly. That's our primary reason for being anywhere. Well, no reason, actually. We just arranged earlier in the week. Al was off, I was off. It's the school holidays. The kids are behind us there. You'll see them in a second. And we thought, let's go and have a fat boy breakfast somewhere.
Absolutely. And if you look in the background, you can see bits of blue sky, which was another good reason.
Yeah, there's a blue sky. There's even a large hot thing up there. I think I've seen that before. I believe it's called the sun. Could be mistaken. So we looked at a map. Al, of course, his aeroplane's based at Liverpool. I'm based down at the moment in somewhere called Weston. And about halfway along the line joining the two is Leicester Airport. So this was an ideal location to come. I'll just swivel the computer around a little bit. You can see I'm hoping those noisy helicopters over there for the time being. They were running a second ago. They're quite noisy. There's a nice little clubhouse over there where we've just had a nice fat boy breakfast.
Yep, absolutely.
Bacon, sausages, all the rest of it. And we're actually, I've got the computer set up here on the wing of my Pipper, my PA-28, and you'll see in there my two kids, Hazel and Isaac. I hope they're not going to accidentally turn it on and the aeroplane's going to disappear off down the runway, leaving us two stranded.
Well, at least we'll be able to sell the video footage and make a few quid.
Yeah, that'll be a good one for you being framed. So it's a lovely little airfield, this. I've been here once before. You've been here once before as well, but maybe a little while ago.
About 15, 20 years ago was the last time I was here.
Okay. Well, it's a great little airfield to drop into. It's fairly quiet today. It's a Thursday morning, so most people are probably at work. Of course, us two lazy buggers have got nothing better to do. Al's plane is, you can't quite see it, it's not this one immediately behind us, but it's the Arrow, the red coloured one. I'm not sure if it's picking up on the video there, just behind. So we both flew in.
Well, the original plan was to park side by side, but of course one of us didn't quite meet the time constraints.
Well, you know, slot delays and you know what it's like at busy airports like Weston.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, there's a little helicopter over there somewhere. Anyway, why are we on video? Well, in this episode, a little later on, the main topic is my segment that I filmed last month down at Heathrow. Sir Nev of Bounds and I went down. We were invited down to Heathrow Air Traffic Control to see their new digital tower setup, their experiment with digital towers, which is a fascinating visit. So we videoed that. Thanks to Nev for taking care of all of that. And that segment I'm going to attach on to this. So if you're listening to the audio of this, and I highly recommend that you go along to YouTube, to my channel. I don't use it very much, just search Plane Safety Podcast and you'll find it all on there, and you can see us two here in the sunshine. But we may as well talk about something. So What have you been up to recently?
Well, I've had a few days off, so I've been doing some general aviating. I've been up to Scotland. So on Saturday we flew up to Glenforsa, which is a lovely grass strip on the loch side on the island of Mull, and there's a hotel right by the runway. So we stayed there in some log cabins, which was great.
Sounds lovely.
Woke up in the morning, beautiful morning, a little bit of low cloud that just burnt away, and we're watching the sea eagles just try and catch their breakfast in the morning, which was great. Then popped over to Oban, spent the night there in a lovely hotel called the Scott, had some great seafood. Then went to Islay to investigate some of the distilleries. There's, I think, 8 distilleries on the one island, which was great. Picked up a little bit of food poisoning, which was a bit of a negative, but didn't impact me too much. And just had thoroughly good time with the family doing some general aviating, which was good fun, to be honest.
Oh, well, that sounds fabulous. Now, I've not been to Glenforsa before, but it looks absolutely gorgeous. You showed me some pictures earlier.
It was stunning.
Yeah, I've been into Oban before. That is a lovely airfield up in the Western Isles of Scotland.
Yeah.
Highly recommend that. Beautiful little place. Yeah, I'm jealous. That sounded like a lovely trip.
It was a real treat, because it's been on my bucket list for a little while.
Yeah.
And the weather played ball, which was nice. A little bit showery when we arrived, but the cloud on the tops of the mountains just added to the ambience. And a very nice stay with lovely food up in the Glenforsa hotel. So I'm not on commission, but I do recommend that if anybody has the opportunity to go and visit, that they do so.
Excellent. And how's stuff going at work? Anything interesting going on?
Well, obviously Brexit just continues to rumble on, but no, work-wise it's good. I'll be going back to work on Tuesday. I've got 2 weeks out in Bucharest, and then I'm off for a couple of weeks. So do some aviating in Bucharest and some aviating when I get back.
Lovely. Well, I just got an email yesterday from the Irish CAA, the IAA, in fact, saying that my Irish licence is ready to collect. So I'm sure SafeJets will be sending me over there to Dublin in the next week or so to pick that up. So I'll officially be an Irish pilot. Not sure how I feel about that, but never mind. But yeah, I've not done too much aviating outside work, actually. I had a quick trip in my Piper here last week just to keep current, really, because I hadn't flown since the 2nd of January, so my 90-day recency was about to expire. So I just popped over one afternoon while the kids were at school, bashed out a few circuits, practiced a PFL. Still can't land it.
You did pretty well today.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad, but you were not, you were quite far away, so you didn't quite see the impact. Oh, there's a blooming helicopter over there. Sorry, folks, if you can hear that. It looks like a Jet Ranger or something.
Yeah.
Oh, he's coming this way. Oh well, we'll carry on regardless. Yeah, but work's been kind of busy. I had a very nice tour last tour. Went to some nice places. Spent the day in Faro, down in Portugal. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what was going on. We got to Faro at 11 a.m. and they left us there the whole day.
Lovely.
So a whole 24 hours off to enjoy the rain, unfortunately, in Faro. But that was nice. And then I'm back at work tomorrow. Not quite sure where I'm going yet. Oh, why are helicopters so noisy? At least he's landing. He'll shut down in a second. What else have I been doing? Headsets. Let's talk about headsets. I got myself a brand new headset last week, and I've just been trying it for the first time. In fact, I've got it here.
Just like Paul Daniels or other magicians are available.
Here's one I prepared earlier. So this is my Bose Pro Flight headset. I've been looking at these for a little while. They're not cheap, unfortunately. They're about $1,000, £1,000, although I got mine significantly cheaper than that. I've got the coil wrapped up. Hang on, let's get this sorted out. So I've been using Bose products for a long time. I had the Bose X back in my Beach 1900 days, which is a nice headset, and then for the last maybe 8 years I've been using my Bose QC15, the Quiet Comfort headset, which is still going strong, but I just fancied a change. So this is the new Bose Pro Flight. You can see this here. It's quite delicate, but it's not one of these. I'll put it on. You can see it's not a full ear covering one. It just sits up here, and then you've got these little sort of earbuds, just like your you'd have on your iPhone or whatever, and you pop those in, and away you go. It's really nice noise cancelling actually. It's got 3 levels of noise cancelling. It's kind of high, medium, low. The low doesn't do much, to be honest, but medium, high works perfectly well. Even in the Piper here, it works quite well. But in the jet, in the Phenom, which I've measured before, is about 71-ish decibels. Do you happen to know how quiet or how noisy your
I don't
Airbus
actually.
is?
What I'll do is I'll do some measurements and I'll let you know next time we're together. They're coming at us.
Yeah, do you know, I'm just going to pause this for a second. These bloody in fact, let's turn the camera around, have a look. I've no idea what helicopters they are. They look kind of cute. But there's 2 of them landing and one just about to take off. So let me just pause here for a second. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going to take the risk and carry on here. There's still 2 helicopters with rotors running. Ironic that I was talking about noise cancelling when those buggers turned up. Horrible things. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, do you happen to know how many decibels it is in your cockpit?
No, I don't. But I will do some measurements and let you know. Technically, it's quiet enough not to need to have a headset on, whereas I guess on the Lemon you definitely need to have.
Yeah, you do really. I mean, you can have a conversation without the headsets, but because you're so close to the passengers, they'll probably overhear anyway.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's much nicer to have the headset on.
Yeah, for us, it's down to the captain's discretion above 20,000 feet whether they keep the headset on and off. I keep mine on because I want to keep my hearing.
Yeah. What headset do you use?
So I use the Bose A20.
Oh right, it's quite a bulky.
It is,
thing.
but I find it reasonably comfortable.
Yeah.
I was quite interested in these. My only concern was, schlepping it around from place to place. Will it stand the test of time?
Yeah, that's my concern. It does look kind of delicate, so I'm kind of handling it with kids' gloves.
Yeah.
Especially the earbuds that just dangle down. I'm sort of paranoid that I'm going to break that. But I must say, it's very comfortable. It's lovely not having something over your ears for 8 or 9 hours a day.
Absolutely.
So it's quite nice to sort of have fresh ears.
Yeah.
My only complaint is the cabling. You see the way, so this is the front of the head here, and you see the way this cable points forward. It would have been a much better design if it went backwards.
Yeah.
So it goes back over your shoulder.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly having to kind of get it out of my face. But comfort-wise, it's lovely. The noise cancelling, as I said, is excellent. I can have it on high or medium. It seems to work just as well.
Yeah.
It's got Bluetooth, obviously, so if we were allowed to, we could listen to podcasts and things when we fly. But obviously, we don't do that. But it's great. And this is versus my QC15, which I've got here as well. So I've had this one for quite a few years. This is just a commercial headset you can buy, anywhere off an electronics website. It's designed for home use, for listening to your stereo or sitting on an airline or something. But this bit makes it all work. This is the U-Fly mic. You get these from the States. It's a company called U-Fly Mic, and it's just an external boom mic. It just plugs straight in, and it's fantastic. It turns it into an aviation headset at a third of the price of the Bose A20, which obviously Bose would like you to buy instead of this thing. So I'm not quite sure how they feel about this, but I must say this works fantastically well. And honestly, having used the ProFlight now for a week, I would say actually on balance, considering this is a third of the cost, or even less these days, that probably for the money this is the better one. But anyway, I'm very pleased with the ProFlight. I must tell you, I have been for a while trying to blag a free one from Bose. I've been in contact with a nice guy at Bose PR based in Amsterdam, and I've been trying everything I can think of to get him to send me one for free. I was saying, well, I could give you a nice review on the podcast, and because so many thousands of pilots listen to the podcast, you'll sell loads of them. But I think he saw through my blatant lies pretty quickly.
I have noticed that there are some YouTubers who have Bose adverts on their YouTube.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, so keep at it.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get the channel up to maybe 25,000, 30,000 views, then...
well, I've only got 25,000, 30,000 to go then.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, it's better that I forked out the money because I can give an honest review of it,
Yeah.
rather than feeling obliged to kind of talk it up a bit. But actually, all in all, I'm very pleased with it, and I've always had Bose products, and this is a good one as well. So, long live Bose. Very happy with that. What else are we going to talk about? Oh yes, I know what we want to talk about. It's the Duxford meetup on the 12th of May. That's a Sunday, planned in conjunction with the PT UK guys.
Easy for you to say.
Yeah, Carlos, Matt, Nev. So, you know, the APG people, they're always having meetups. So we thought it was about time we had one of our own. So Sunday, the 12th of May, over at the Imperial War Museum in Duxford. Everyone's invited. Some of us will be flying in. I'll be flying in.
The weather.
Yeah, if the weather's good. Al may be flying in. Hopefully a few others. But we're going to meet up, have a look around the museum. It's a fantastic museum if you've not been there before. It's got Concords. It's got blackbirds. It's got
Ice cream.
It's got hot dogs. It's got Lancaster. Really good museum, so come along.
I've never been, so I'm really looking.
No, really?
Seriously?
Never been to Duxford. Unbelievable.
But let me test you out here. Have you been to Cosford?
I have.
Okay.
I went to see Nick gave his
of
talk.
course he did, yes.
So yeah, we only had a few minutes to look around the museum, but yeah, Cosford is very good as well. Anyway, so if you want to come along, it's probably worth you dropping either myself or the PT UK. Will they get themselves a more easy pronounceable name? PT UK guys, drop them an email, because Duxford do offer group rates of 10 or more. So if you're coming along, let us know, then perhaps we can organise a group rate to get in. It saves quite a lot of money. I think it's usually £15 entry, and the group rates are about £10. So it's, you know, it's an appreciable saving. So get in touch, and hope to see you all there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, that helicopter's just about to take off and make some more noise. Yeah, let's watch him take off. I don't know what that is. Is it an Enstrom or...?
I'm not an expert.
Yeah, they're quite dinky little things, little two-man helicopters.
Two-person, we live in PC times now.
Two-person helicopters, that's right. Very busy here with helicopters. I had no idea. Look, they just dragged another one out. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those things, whatever they are. The little silver numbers. Lovely. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Let's get on with stuff, and we're going to play now the section, the video section that I recorded at London Heathrow. Now, this all came about because of an invite from a chap called Paul Beauchamp, who really set this up. So big thanks to him. He invited us down to have a look around. We met up with Andy Taylor, who you'll see on the video. He's really the main man behind this project. He talked us all through it. Also thanks to Hanna, the lovely Hanna from Nats, who met us there, took us through security and took us up to the tower. And also to our good mate Adam Spinky. I don't know why I've decided to call him Spinky. Spinky, it's your new name, Spinky. He was there as well to you know, just be a friendly face on scenes. We had a great discussion, a great talk. Really worth watching the video. If you are listening to the audio, check out the video, because it's a very kind of visual thing. You need to see what it is that we're talking about. So let's play that now. Enjoy. Andy, thanks for joining us, and thanks for inviting us down. Okay. Perhaps then you could just, by way of an intro, just tell us where we are and what this is all about.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the Heathrow Digital Tower Laboratory. It's the world's first 4K Ultra HD digital tower facility, and it's in the base of the control tower at Heathrow Airport. It allows us direct access to live operational data. We're also capturing live video footage and displaying that here integrated together, and we're able to bring in the controllers from the operation to work with us in the lab.
Okay. What's the long-term vision for this? Are we one day intending to replace traditional towers with a digital tower technology?
Well, we certainly don't believe that there is a need to build another physical traditional control tower with the digital capabilities that are now available. However, I think where it's going to go is to go through a transition phase where in some cases some airports will move direct to digital. In some cases we will augment conventional control towers with digital capabilities within them. I'd certainly see that as being something we would be doing at Heathrow with the control tower that we have at the moment.
Sure. So it might look something like the visual control room that they that they already have, but augmented with this digital technology, with the screens and all the benefits that brings.
Yeah, certainly it may not look exactly as it is in the laboratory, and that is entirely the purpose of the laboratory. The aim is basically to give capabilities and support to the controllers within tools that are built on the Digital Tower Lab, taking video surveillance as an additional data source and either presenting that to them or presenting outputs to help them with their job. So when we use AI, that can actually just indicate on other systems or provide prompts to controllers that something either needs to draw their attention to something, or it's that they should now focus on a different task or clear an aircraft to land, that type of scenario.
Sure. So what we're looking at here, obviously, we're at the base of the control tower at Heathrow, and we're looking across to the north side of Heathrow, eventually where the new runway will go. But I guess it's not a big leap from this to a fully remote tower. I guess that some of the technology is going to be very, very similar. You know, is there any reason why this setup here, once it goes live, couldn't be magically transported somewhere else at Swanwick, perhaps, to control an airport from a distance?
Well, certainly you have live data now. This is all live footage going on as we speak out on the northern runway at Heathrow. So effectively you can take this video and combined system data and you can send it anywhere. It simply needs the connectivity to do that. So at the moment, while we're just bringing it from parts of the airfield and down from the control tower to display in here, yeah, you could basically display it wherever that need is. I don't necessarily see that you know, we have to remote from Heathrow to be able to get the benefits of a digital tower, though. So you can actually have a digital tower on site as much as you can have a digital tower as a remote control function.
Sure. But is that something NATS is interested in pursuing, the remote tower?
We're doing both. Yeah, we're doing both. So if there is a need to move one of our control towers, for example, like London City, from on the airfield, then remoting it somewhere else and remoting that to Swanwick is absolutely the right thing to do, and that is what we're doing right now. But likewise, if it's about giving controllers additional capabilities to remove restrictions and delays and weather impacts, that's what we're focusing on at Heathrow in this instance, and that's just as important, but a totally different use case than remoting our operation at Heathrow. This is very much to make our operation here safer and more resilient.
Okay, so you kind of touched on it there, but as a pilot, when you talk about these new technologies, the natural reaction tends to be one of suspicion almost, and at least a raised eyebrow. So putting on your salesman's hat, perhaps, you know, why is this a good thing? What benefits is it going to bring?
Well, I would probably, rather than a salesman's hat, I'd actually put my air traffic controller's hat on, which is where my career started. And actually, what I need as an air traffic controller is to be able to observe parts of the airport, to have all the information I need to control aircraft as safely and as efficiently as possible given to me, and that's what the digital tower solution is all about. So actually it just enhances the way that controllers can operate today. From a pilot's perspective, it's pretty much unnoticeable really, I guess, from, you know, when you transfer from the control tower to the radar control environment as you depart, or otherwise vice versa as you're coming into an airport. It doesn't really matter where that controller is sitting, so long as they're providing you with the right guidance, advice and information. So our intent is absolutely to be able to give the controller everything they need to provide the pilot with the services they expect.
Okay, so perhaps we can look a little bit more closely at some of those benefits. So we can see on the big screen behind us, one of the most striking things is these data tags. So perhaps you can just explain why that's there and what information it's giving the controller and why that's a good thing.
So again, if you imagine taking yourself in the lift and up 87 metres to the control tower, they have a similar view to what you see on the video wall of 27 right, the North Runway, and they'll be watching that British Airways 777 vacating as we speak. However, if they want to confirm its call sign, then or any other information, they would look down onto another system and correlate that. What we're doing here is integrating the ground surveillance so that you can see inbound aircraft are colour represented, so they're brown labels. Blue aircraft are outbounds, which you would see if we go to the departure runway on the south side. But basically it's giving us call signs, aircraft types and their parking stands. We can also see in the distance, actually just above the private jet there, there's a police helicopter operating in the vicinity of the airfield. Again, that may well be just not quite visible from the control tower, but because of the tag that's coming from the transponder, that's displayed and it makes it very clear that that police helicopter's there. I can certainly tell that without having to have the information of the flight progress, flight data strips that the controllers have upstairs. If we went into the control tower, I would not be able to tell you there's a police helicopter there, and in fact he's probably just on the cusp of the sort of 5 miles from the airport that we currently have it set at as a perimeter. Outside of that, not particularly that relevance to the controller, but as soon as it gets within that kind of distance, we've set it so that it triggers. That's configurable.
Okay, and taking that helicopter as an example, could the controller see the distance that it is away with using that data tag? Is there some...
We can do that. We can actually present in data tags pretty much anything that a controller asks for. They're very configurable. So on some systems we actually have speeds, heights and distances that are displayed.
So that's quite useful then for the line of approaching aircraft. You can see at what spacing.
Yes, that can be displayed either on the video wall output or otherwise what we have not currently deployed at Heathrow, but we have deployed in Singapore at the moment, is an approach monitoring system where there is a set of cameras specifically staring up the approach, and that effectively gives the runway controller the view from the end of the runway, the threshold end of the runway, landing threshold, looking up the approach, puts the controller 2 to 3 kilometres nearer to that aircraft, and enables them to see the aircraft on the approach much more effectively. So if the visibility drops, and again a controller can't see from the physical tower, when you look at the approach monitoring cameras, you're able to see aircraft 7 or 8 miles out on the approach, and you can provide additional augmentation of the distance between and the speed they're flying. All of that.
So this really is the equivalent of a heads-up display in an aircraft cockpit.
Yeah.
You know, you're having all the information right there in front of you without having to go to 2 or 3 different places. So you can, you know, from a situational awareness point of view, it's a real game changer, I suppose.
I think that's a really good analogy. And actually, what we're doing with digital towers, I guess, is how the cockpit has evolved with glass cockpits over the last few years. You know, where systems have become rationalised, and all the information that's presented is presented in a sort of clearer way, where it's more at your fingertips. And that's what we're trying to do for controllers, rather than having lots of separate dials and systems, is to be able to integrate, combine, and provide them in the most suitable way. So the heads-up displays are, that's a perfect example.
Right. And it's quite a dynamic environment we're looking at here, aircraft moving around all over the place. And what's really impressive is the data tag somehow magically is able to follow that aircraft around.
Yeah, well, that's partly down to it's taking the ground radar system, the multilateration from the transponders, so that gives us the label, and it gives us a position, but that's only actually at a 1 second update, which on a radar display, when you're looking at the whole airfield on a small screen, looks fine. When you actually then see it with aircraft that you can see moving at speed and at 25 frames per second, then the tags themselves actually quite often lag behind. But what we do is we apply additional live processing to that using the software so that smooths the tags with them. So you're actually getting a better view of the tagged aircraft than you do on the radar system as far as that smooth tracking.
Sure. And of course the real benefit, as you've already hinted at a couple of times, is when the visibility does drop and the tower at 87 meters, I think you said, disappears into cloud, then you've still got this wonderful image presented before you, so you can really see what's going on.
So even if this view becomes affected by cloud, then we already have a system of cameras which are out on the runway. They're in fact very clear near to the British Airways aircraft that's just vacating the 27 right runway at the moment, and they're monitoring that aircraft so that that's going to provide an AI-based indication rather than video, to the controller to advise that the aircraft's tail has cleared the runway edge and then has cleared the runway strip. So that enables the controller then to provide the next landing in clearance and assure themselves that the aircraft's cleared the protected strip. So even if these cameras were not to give you that direct view, you have that benefit. What you actually have with these, even if they're slightly obscured, is an overlay, which means that you can see the edges of the taxiways and the runways through that cloud, and you also then see the labelling, and you're able to spot the aircraft more clearly. What we're doing at other airports where we're putting in larger systems now, like Changi in Singapore, is that we have a number of camera panoramas around the airfield, so that as the visibility drops, or otherwise you're just interested in a particular area, like the departure runway controller wants to see the whole queue of aircraft waiting for departure, you can bring that queue really close and back into the controller as if they were sitting right in the middle of that by putting a camera distributed array out there and then feed that into their displays. So I can provide a controller with a much better situational awareness, much clearer view than they can have by looking out the window of a glass tower.
Yeah, and I guess also a more common situation you have to deal with at least once a day, I guess, is when the sun goes down and nighttime comes around. This is really giving you greater visibility again at night. You can.
It is, yeah. So again, using the 4K cameras, they have a really great low light and nighttime performance. So what we actually see in here is more of a view that looks like dusk. You still see the colour of the aircraft. You still see the runway, the paint markings. You can even see the sort of rubber strip down the centre of the runway, the sort of dark shading. You see that level of detail, which if you go into the control tower, you don't necessarily see it in that. It looks a lot darker. And looking particularly at this view of the north runway, from the tower you would see a very bright area of Terminal 3 parking stands at the bottom of the display. You'd see the hotels and the car parks very brightly lit. But the area that's really important to air traffic control, which is the parallel taxiways and the runway, are in darkness, with a little bit of the edge lights that you're able to see. But with the overlay of the runway edges and the taxiway edges, it makes that really clear. Plus then with the 4K visuals, you actually have an enhanced view, and then add in the tags. You've got a better view at night time than you have from the tower.
Sure. And what's the impact on all of this for those days when we're in low visibility procedures, when it's foggy and we can't see as much from the ground, let alone the tower? Is this still able to operate?
Well, that's something that we can test while we're going through the current validation of the tower and cloud supporting tool, the hold line surveillance, which is, as the name suggests, a surveillance system for the runway hold lines. So that system will eventually cover all the entry-exit points. There are around about 34, I think, at Heathrow, and enable us to monitor those simultaneously. While we're testing it at the moment for when the tower is in cloud and there's a clear view underneath, what we'll also be doing is collecting data when we're in low visibility, fog low visibility, and we'll be able to see and confirm how well the cameras operate in those conditions. My expectation is that we'll be able to provide some kind of additional support and enhancement in those, but our prime target right now is to remove the restrictions and the delays from tower and cloud, but there can be additional benefits.
Sure. And focusing on the safety benefits then, you already mentioned it once, but this has some runway incursion protection enhancements. You mentioned that you have the cameras on the hold points are looking to see exactly when an aircraft is vacated. Perhaps you can just expand on that a little more. Yeah,
certainly. So the hold line surveillance itself, being camera based, so it's a 25 frame per second update. It's at 4K resolution, so you're looking at every aircraft in ultra high definition, in fact, and you're able to identify exactly the edge of the trailing part of the aircraft, so that whether it be a winglet or a tail, and down to a pixel. A radar system does not give you that level of resolution, and it's a 1 second update. So effectively, with radar, you're looking at a historic picture only by 1 second, but 1 second in air traffic control terms, and with a lower level of resolution, means that we apply additional spacing when we can't actually see out of the window to be able to detect with the human eye that the tail's cleared. But Amy, the artificial intelligence, is able to do that using the video. So it's replacing the controller's eye with an AI eye.
Okay, and so how would that look then if a controller clears an aircraft to depart and the one that's just landed ahead of it's not quite clear of the runway yet? Is it going to start setting off red sirens and things, or how does that look?
At the moment, we're still working with the controllers as to how they want the system to indicate to them. The area that we're looking at the moment with them is on the indication of the status of the aircraft that's actually vacating the runway,
right,
so that they can, by monitoring that aircraft, know that it's cleared, that they can then provide the next landing clearance and ensure that that aircraft can roll out perfectly safely. But effectively, you could add in other layers of processing such that you could provide other alerts and other prompts.
Okay, such as aircraft inadvertently entering the runway.
Yeah, well, if again, I go back to the with the system fully deployed, so it's looking at every entry-exit point. Then, unlike a controller, it can monitor every point. So while watching an aircraft vacating the runway, still able to watch an aircraft that's entering the runway, whether that's authorised or unauthorised entry.
Okay. And am I right in saying that that's not just aircraft this AI is looking at, it's ground vehicles, other airport equipment? It could potentially recognise those?
The cameras basically look at everything within their field of view, and the AI specifically then looks for whether it's an aircraft and then what type of and where the aircraft tail and other parts are. But effectively, anything that passes within its field of view can be something that it can process and provide us with indications.
Sure. Okay. I mean, that sounds simple enough, doesn't it? But I suppose actually the technology behind that AI is really quite impressive. How do you teach a computer to recognise what an aircraft is? If you show a child a picture of a plane, or ask what it is, they'll say it's a plane. But how do you know that's a plane? What what new experience has told you that's a plane? So, that seems easy enough for a human brain to comprehend, but to teach a computer, it's kind of boggles the mind, really. Well,
machine learning is a similar thing in that you have to provide the experiences. So we're providing camera data of video imagery of aircraft vacating through the specific points that we want the system to monitor and trigger on. So it is learning what every aircraft looks like, and then we're testing the system in the laboratory just to see how well it's learned. But effectively, it learns in the lab, it's tested in the lab, and only when it gets to the point whereby every aircraft that vacates through that point is correctly tracked, correctly triggers the 2 points that we're looking for of clearing the runway edge and then clearing the runway strip, and provides those to a level of accuracy that we can determine it's down to whatever that may be in centimetres or millimetres. That's when we have the level of assurance that we know we can put it into the operation. And the laboratory environment is a safe environment to do that learning and testing.
Sure. And is that learning process an ongoing thing? Is it going to, every aircraft it sees, is it going to store that somewhere in its intelligence for later use? Or does it have you fed it, let's say, 5,000 images and it's just got that limited array of images to look at?
Well, it's a continual process from the point of view that we have continual surveillance which we're archiving. So we can do learning in real time, we can also do learning offline. And actually what we're focused on at the moment is an offline learning, so that what level has been taught, you then test that and see how it performs, and then so long as it's then gets to the point that it's performing to an acceptable level, that's the point that you can deploy it. You can then do further learning of other specific events that, as you want to provide additional features.
Okay, and is that going to have some flexibility in it, or is that, in some ways, that going to limit the controller what he can do? So, for instance, as I look at this picture now, I noticed that this BA, whatever that is there, was vacating the runway, and this one, the Air Canada, touched down actually before that one had fully vacated the runway. Is the system then going to kind of, draw a red line and that say, nope, this aircraft is not fully over the hold line, so therefore I'm going to set off the alerts? Or does it recognise that, all right, it's not quite across, but it's moving, and it detects that as a safe situation?
Right. Well, actually, so the first probably important point is that for the runway strip to be vacated in normal conditions as we're seeing today, the aircraft doesn't actually have to clear completely beyond the painted holding point markings. What it actually has to do is clear the strips. That's 77.5 metres from the runway centre line. So it's actually an invisible line that's between the runway hold point and the white lines of the runway edge, which is the strip clear. That is what controllers spend a long time being trained to make their own assessments of that by looking out of the window. And that is why Amy is in training from the point of view of having been had that 77.5 metres line identified to the system. It's then checking that the tail of every single different aircraft mark and livery has cleared that point. So the preceding aircraft is vacated when it's cleared 77.5 metres, and that's the key trigger that we're looking for runway strip.
Okay. So in terms of safety benefits, is there anything else you can think of that this system brings over a traditional visual tower?
Well, as I mentioned already, sort of from the point of view of providing the controller with a better view than they can have from the control tower, by bringing distant parts of the airport or obscured parts of the airport to the controller in an unobscured way, that gives benefits, efficiency and safety. Likewise, then, when you tag aircraft, that also ensures that when you have a number of aircraft with the same livery, the ability to confuse aircraft is very much reduced, without having to cross-reference. So you have an instant indication rather than having to process that in the brain, and by removing that need for the controller to process the flight data information, the ground radar data, and the out-of-the-window view, gives the controller more time to think. So actually that in itself becomes both an operational efficiency and a safety feature, because the controller can do more important decision-making and safety-related tasks rather than just doing data correlation.
Sure. So in terms then of efficiency savings, the more cynical of us might think that when you present this to an airport manager and you talk about being able to save the controller time, free up capacity, the airport manager might then be thinking, aha, we can perhaps save on staff here. Is that, if you call it a benefit or not, is perhaps that one of the outcomes of this, that you can start to reduce the number of staff you have doing a particular job?
Our focus is really supporting the operation, and particularly complicated and and capacity constrained operations, be that throughout the day like at Heathrow, be it in peak periods or in poor weather conditions. All of those things push the controller's mental processing to limits, and our view is that controllers, being humans, we're pushing their human performance limits to the extent that providing them with support is actually the key of this. It's not predominantly to to reduce staffing at Heathrow. This is to provide Heathrow with the capabilities it needs under its current challenging operation and potentially into an expanded operation.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so the other viewpoint that us cynical pilots perhaps take is, what are the redundancies here? What happens if someone snips the wire and all these screens go blank? What are some of the redundancies behind this? Well,
this system itself, being the laboratory, doesn't have full operational redundancies on it. However, if I look at a system like the one we're deploying with Searage in Singapore, that one has multiple layers of redundancy. So you have everything from gap filling, such as if in a panorama you lose a single camera, for example, then a pan tilt zoom camera moves into a position to backfill that data. You also have then, with the distributed camera arrays, secondary views. So if you were to lose an entire view from one position, say this particular video wall, then you would move to a secondary view, which gives the controller with a backup view. So they have those. There are also then dual circuits of connectivity from the point of view of the fibre that transmits the information. So there's lots of different layers of resilience that's built into the system, and to an extent, this is something that NATS has been doing for a long time. We've had radar and radio traffic information, as in the radio broadcasts, sent from locations all around the country and into our centres and presented to controllers. So those multi-systems backups and multi-connections are all the kind of things that we've been doing for a long, long time. So for us, this is just a continuation of that. It's another data source. And cybersecurity-wise, that effectively is something that we deal with every single day. You just continue to make your systems more updated, and we just keep working on ensuring that cybersecurity and system security is of the highest level possible.
Okay. I think you mentioned there then, perhaps you just confirm that all this is transmitted through hardwire. It's not a wireless connectivity.
No, this is done through fibre.
Right.
So that we get the full benefit of the 4K resolution.
Okay, excellent. So what's the timeline you're looking at here from going from this laboratory to a live environment?
Well, that's part of the benefit of having the laboratory here, is to be able to take a requirements to deployment technology from years down to months. So what we're working on at the moment with the Towering Cloud solution, the intent is to complete the validation of that partial system this year, and then commence the deployment on the back of that.
Okay. So I guess from a NATS point of view, you'd ideally looking to be able to, sell this to many airports around the world.
Well, Heathrow is an excellent shop window for everything that NATS has done for many years, and everything that we do today and in the future. It is a benchmark as far as dual runway operations. It's the busiest dual runway operation in the world. Our controllers here are seen as benchmark, and we've done consultancy services around the world to help other airports and air traffic service providers to bring those capabilities online. So I would see the technology that we have with Searage that we're developing in the lab here at Heathrow as being something that would be part of that offering. And as I've mentioned already, we're working in Singapore at the moment to deploy a digital tower solution with Searage.
Okay. Just jumping back a stage, there was a couple of questions I forgot to ask. Moving down to these screens here, reading about all this stuff yesterday, I gathered that one of the real benefits of this, I think it's part of the AI system or just the software behind it, is for the ground controller, this system, I think I'm right in saying, will look at and optimize taxi routings for the ground controller. Is that something specific to this, this new system, or is that something they've got anyway and you've just integrated it?
No, I think what you're talking about from the point of view of the capability of kind of route selection, automated route selection, that is a capability that's being discussed. It's not something that we currently have deployed on this lab system, but again, the lab is here to be able to deploy and test all sorts of capabilities. So those kind of ones, along with the ones that support the airport's expansion, are very much a case of the next steps. Okay. And just looking at the big screen here, one thing that occurs to me, I don't know what the kind of angular vertical view is, but do you have any requirement or need, or would it be useful to be able to look straight up into the overhead? Well, you can't look up into the overhead from the control tower as it stands at the moment, obviously, as you can't from any physical tower because of the roof line. The field of view that you have from ground to sky is very much dependent on camera equipment, the lens itself, the positioning of that, height and distance, particularly from the runway itself. So that is very configurable, and it depends where you mount those cameras. The ones that you're looking at the moment are mounted just slightly below the controllers, but in the control tower or on the control tower building. And the 4K cameras have quite a wide field of view. But basically, it's a calculation really from the point of view of the number of cameras that are required for the field of view, and so that can be changed. And again, when you use distributed views, you can have views that provide you with more sky view, like I was mentioning with the approach monitoring cameras. You could be looking at the departure path specifically to monitor aircraft as they diverge on departure. So again, it depends on specifically what information you want the controller to be able to see, but the distributed camera network enables us to do that very much flexibly. Okay,
and just looking at this picture here, I'm just curious, are there any blind spots in this field of view, or when you switch to the southern runway, do these, the point at which the image ends, is that where it begins looking the other way?
Yeah, we have pretty much a 360-degree view, but in two halves. As I've mentioned, because of the fact that with the dual runway operation, putting them onto one display gives a strange distortion if you try and open that out, because the runways end up pointing at each other. So it does, in a multi-runway airport like Heathrow, make more sense to have a single view of one half of the airport. And actually, that's what the controllers are very much used to. When you sit in the physical control tower, you can't see behind you. You can literally see, your 4 kilometres of runway. When you look at a smaller airport, digital tower solution, quite often those are quite easily contained on a single video wall. But then you're probably talking about a runway which is maybe 1,500 metres rather than nearly 4 kilometres long. So this kind of a video wall presentation is what I would tend to start with regards to a layout for a fully digital facility. But as we mentioned before, it may be that the video wall is not required and you use the lower layers on the controller workstations to make it a kind of hybrid operation in a physical tower. But you're right, there are limitations in the view that I'm currently looking at. For example, the ground movement controller that's responsible for Terminal 5 is able to see on the east sides of the piers very clearly, as you can see from the pictures, and likewise I have a replication of that back here, but it's fed from the same cameras at the moment as the video wall. However, what I can do is by putting a distributed additional set of cameras perhaps on Terminal 5, I could give a view into Terminal 5, which is more like the view that you can see here of Terminal 3, where all parts of the terminal can be seen to the extent that you can see fueling, catering, air bridges on. So the current control tower can see a certain amount from 87 metres, and the only way to see more would be to go higher and higher and higher. But going higher and higher and higher physically is both costly, and then it also puts the tower into cloud more often.
Sure.
So the response is basically digital, and it's put the cameras where we need to see. So at the moment, this is a smaller system than you would probably deploy for a full digital only solution for Heathrow, and I would give then enhanced views beyond what you can see from the control tower, 87 metres up.
Sure. So obviously the main users of this are the controllers, but there are certainly other groups of people who need to have visibility over the airfield, the firefighters, the ground ops people. Are they going to have access to this information?
They certainly could do. We're working very closely with Heathrow Airport Limited, and from the point of view of their needs as far as being able to get integrated data where you'd have, say, the same view as the controllers have from the tower with the integrated tags, that information can be supplied to the airport company as much as it can be supplied into this laboratory. So yes, that again, you can now open up your control tower to enable lots of other agencies the same kind of bird's eye view and integrated data that air traffic control have.
Sure, excellent. Well, just to finish up then, perhaps we could just talk about very briefly, specifically what's going to be happening on the northern end of the airport and the third runway. I don't know if we can switch the view back to
Certainly,
the
yeah.
north.
Back to north runway.
So, if and when that gets built, and if this system is then live, is that going to entail a new setup over there, a new set of cameras to be able to see that, or could you see it with what you've got here in the lab?
Well, I think certainly the opinion is that the view from the physical tower to the third runway would not be sufficient to provide the kind of control that we currently can on the two runways. So the obvious conclusion really is a digital solution would enable you to see that and either bring it into the conventional tower or take it to a fully digital facility. So at the moment, those options are many and varied, but certainly involve a digital combination of a solution potentially. Yeah.
Excellent. And I suppose from a cost-saving point of view, that's not a bad thing. It probably cost a fortune to have to build a whole new tower.
Physical control towers are certainly not cheap structures to build, and particularly when you need them to be large enough to see the kind of airport that Heathrow currently is, and another runway of a similar size would require, in physical terms, a similarly large control tower. So that would be a big investment. It also means that you have a split operation, as many airports do, between two control towers. So you almost then end up with two airports strapped side by side. Ideally, if you can bring all of the controllers together and keep them in one operations room, it means that they're able to work together more effectively. And so bringing, again, the video and integrated data on that video to one set of controllers is more likely to be an optimal solution. So I would see digital towers as being the future. I don't anticipate that any airport in the UK would need to build a physical tower, be it a physical tower of Heathrow size or a smaller airport tower. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time. I think that was very interesting and very enlightening.
You're welcome.
Thank
you.
I hope you enjoyed that, found it interesting. If so, then I can highly recommend that you go along to YouTube and check out episodes 259 and 260 of Plain Talking UK podcast. We also produced a couple of segments featured in those episodes from the digital tower at Heathrow. So if you want to find out a little bit more, then definitely go along and check out the two segments in those episodes, 259 and 260 on YouTube. Once again, a huge thanks and gratitude to Andy Taylor, who gave up his time and afternoon, sat down with us and talked through the project. Also, special thanks to Paul Beauchamp at Nats, who extended the invitation and set it all up for us, and also to Hanna Haggerty at Nats, who was good enough to meet us at Heathrow and guide us through security and up to the tower. Also to Adam Spink for being our on-site friendly face, and of course a very special thanks to Nev for bringing along all his audio and video equipment, for his technical expertise in recording the whole thing and then editing and stitching it all together. I certainly couldn't have done it without his help, so thanks Nev, really appreciate that. Okay, let's rejoin myself and Al over at Leicester. Okay, well, I hope you enjoyed that. Now, Al, I know you've not seen that before, so you'll be watching it at some point, I hope.
Yes, absolutely.
But
I find that fascinating.
Yeah, I think you will. Now, I must admit, as probably was made evident at the beginning of that segment, it's not entirely what I thought. This is something different from remote towers. This is a digital tower, so it's more of a...
it's either on or off, I suppose.
Yeah, it's more of an additional tool to the controllers, so they're not necessarily, you know, based in some remote location like we're talking about at London City Airport. But some of the enhancements that they've got going on there, I think, were fabulous, just from a safety point of view. Some of the information that can be kind of given to the controller, at his fingertips, just by looking out of these digital screens, I think is fantastic. So I hope the controllers are excited about it as well.
It's certainly more snazzy than I thought it was going to be. I had visions of guys walking around with these VR headsets on, touching out for aeroplanes that aren't really there.
Well, maybe that's the next development, but I think it's exciting stuff. So, if you guys got any questions or any thoughts about that, then or anything else, of course, then you know where to send it. So send an email to the hotline, which is feedback@planesafetypodcast.com, or you can go to the website and click on the contact us form there. As I think that's a pit specialist just starting up over there, going off to do some aerobatics. So this is probably a good place to wrap it up. Of course, you can find us on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle these days?
@AirbusAl.
Okay, I always think Big Al Evans was your old Twitter handle.
It was, yeah.
Okay, and
but
then
I've lost some weight now. So.
Okay, so not quite so big, Al Evans. And I'm P Safety Podcast on Twitter. Find us on Facebook as well. Until the next time, then, I'm going to wish you all safe flying and fun and happiness and all of that stuff. I don't know. We'll be back quite soon with a regularly scheduled podcast. Do you two want to say hello? Hi. Okay. All right, well, Al, it's been a pleasure to see you here at Leicester
Absolutely,
today.
yeah.
We'll have to make this a regular event.
Certainly try to.
Yeah, maybe invite some of the listeners along. We can all have a big fat boy breakfast together. All right, well, I'm going to sign off there. Everybody, take care. See you all again soon.
Ciao for now.
Bye.